Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Vice President of GMF, Dr. Ian Lesser.
Good afternoon. Welcome back. We get to shift gears a little bit here now and to talk about something that's actually very important in the context of this 19th edition of Brussels Forum, because this is being held in the context of the Belgian presidency of the European Union. And of course, this is not an easy time. With the war in Europe, multiple crises in the Middle East and elsewhere, it's a very challenging agenda, and we're extremely fortunate to have with us this afternoon the foreign minister, but also Minister of European Affairs, Foreign Trade, Federal Cultural Institution. It's a big portfolio. Hadja Lahbib, thank you for being with us to have this conversation. Please. So, as we were saying just before we came in, I think both agreed that we would, in a way, introduce this in the same way by saying this is not an easy period, extraordinarily challenging. Yeah. And thank you again for being with us, and thank you also for the Ministry's historic support for this event. We're very, very grateful for that. But it's a great opportunity to have this conversation and to hear some reflections from you on the experience of the presidency, the successes, some of the challenges, what's happening. So.
Yeah,
Minister, over to you.
Thank you very much, Jan, for your kind introduction, and thank you for the German Marshall Fund for this invitation. It's really a privilege to be here today to discuss something as important as Atlanticism in action. So indeed, I can start with an understatement. We live in a very challenging period of time. A passionate period of time as well, very uncomfortable to be Minister of Foreign Affairs, and I hope that I will not appear in the near future when I will say to my grandchild that I was Minister of Foreign Affairs in 2024, that I will appear like a culprit. I hope not, because indeed we have more and more uncertainty, insecurity. A war for the first time since a long time ago in our European continent. Also tensions in the Middle East, a risk of a regional spillover, clearly, and not to mention the many other overshadows conflicts in the world, in Yemen, in Sudan, or in Eastern DNC. And indeed, these tensions and wars have a direct impact also on our global economy. Trade is being used nowadays as a weapon, sometimes a geopolitical tool, and as a result, the global economy is marked by inflation, pressures on the supply chain. And this is at a time when the global economy is in the midst of a profound transition towards sustainability. And so all these challenges were indeed on the top of the agenda of our European presidency. And for me, it was very clear that we could only successfully address these challenges, and not only together with 27 countries inside the EU, even with a strong European position, but also with a close collaboration with our partners, with our allies, and indeed essentially with United States. And this is to give you an overview of the particular context of our presidency, which has also its own challenges, given the fact that we are at the end of the parliamentary term with election on June the 9th. And so in this regard, we hold three major responsibilities. First, to finalize as much as we can the legislative work. Second, to address the current affairs and crisis. And third, preparing the future of our union, to prepare our union to the enlargement and to be fit for responding the challenges of the future.
Minister, thank you very much. Let me maybe pick up on a couple of things that you said, and maybe in particular this legislative agenda and some of the key issues. What would you view as some of the key successes, and maybe some of the things that were left undone simply because the environment is not so easy, but maybe to say a few words about those things.
So you certainly may have seen maybe our motto, the motto of the Belgian presidency. It was to protect, to prepare, and to protect, to strengthen our competitiveness and to prepare. So these three priorities cover a wide policy agenda, from defending the rule of law and strengthening our competitiveness, and to pursuing a green and just transition. And halfway through our presidency, I'm proud, even if I'm Belgium, so modesty and humbleness is in our DNA, but I'm proud nevertheless to announce you that we have been able to finalize nearly 70 legislative agreements during our presidency. So it means that the Belgian compromise is really a key to hold the presidency at the end of the parliamentary period of time. So let me maybe just highlight, if I may, a few significant ones. The revision of the MFF, so the multi-annual financial framework for 2021-2027. So thanks to this revision, the European Union can provide substantial support to Ukraine. So it was very important. And then we also completed work on the Net Zero Industry Act, which translates our international commitment on climate change into action. And in the field of defense, we have bolstered our European cyber defense capabilities with Cyber Security Act. So in these times of polarization and hybrid warfare, this is certainly a significant step forward. But our presidency, of course, goes beyond agreements. We have also initiated productive discussions and achieved tangible progress on a series of strategic issues. And for instance, we had an informal meeting with the foreign affairs ministers. We engaged in strategic dialogues on EU and African relations, EU-Africa relations, a dialogue that we have to reinforce, considering the many opportunities that the African continent can offer in the necessary diversification of our supply chain, for instance, and the same with Turkey, which is an important partner in NATO, but also a precious build bridges when it comes to negotiate with Russia. You remember certainly that we had an agreement, thanks to Turkey, to deliver, to export the grain from Ukraine through the Black Sea, even if it's not the case nowadays. And also, more recently, we hosted the 6th meeting of Trade and Technology Council in Leuven, the last one before the European and the US elections this year, and I had the pleasure to have a dinner with Blinken, and we discussed, of course, the situation in the Middle East.
Exactly. No, thank you very, very much. I mean, it's quite an agenda, and in a very complex setting, as you say.
And it's not finished.
And it's not finished. So that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, what are the things that you would like to have seen done, or can still see doing, that perhaps have not been done yet, that would kind of complete this picture for you in the presidency?
Yeah, to reform the European Union. Yeah, this is this is a part of the strategic agenda. This is a very important one, because indeed we have to be more and more agile, that's certain, and to take decision, for instance, on defense and foreign policy with the necessity to reach a consensus, unanimity. It's terrible, you know. So we have to be more agile and more to be able to take swift decision with 27 and maybe with 35 countries in the near future. So there is a parallel reforms that we have to lead for the enlargement and for our own benefit, even with 27 countries. For instance, it is the first time under a presidency that we have been able to deliver a common statement with the 27 on the Middle East, asking for a long-lasting pause, a humanitarian pause that should lead to a sustainable ceasefire, the release of all the hostages, and the relaunch of a political process that could give a horizon to the Palestinian and security to the Israelis as well. So this is also something that we are proud that we have been able to achieve under our presidency. And we have to continue on this path, of course. And talking about the enlargement, there is also the Ukraine accession. Also, we just received in March the framework discussion, and we hope that we will host an intergovernmental, we say in French, governmental council in June. So this is important step towards the enlargement and the reform process in our union.
Minister, you mentioned Turkey, and I was wondering if I could ask you, I mean, there's a sense now that somehow, even if the membership issue for Turkey is not really moving, that there's a lot more that can be done, in particular bringing Turkey into a structured foreign policy dialogue with European members. Are you optimistic about that?
I'm always optimistic and realistic on the same time. And for instance, we invite Turkey in a couple of days. They will be part of our informal Foreign Affairs Council as we will celebrate the 20 years of the Big Bang, the first enlargement of our European Union. It was in 2004. Remember those times. We had once 10 more countries within our union, and we will celebrate this major event. It was nowadays we can say that it's a success story. So this process was a success. It's a success story, and we will celebrate with the lesson learned that we can take from this period and the projection of our future. And we will invite all the candidates countries, and Turkey is still a candidate of accession to our union.
Okay. Let me ask you the obvious question for this setting, especially the transatlantic dimension. We've already heard a little bit today. I know you couldn't join us until very bit before this session, but we were talking about the state of democracy on both sides of the Atlantic, and the prospects. Well, we have an important election coming up in the United States. Europe is in a way a stakeholder in all of that. What would you say would be your expectations about a predictable relationship with the United States, whether it's in security or it's in trade? Or simply the style of the relationship across the Atlantic?
What I can say is that, and I just said to Blinken when he was here a couple of days ago for the TTC, in this turbulent period of our time, we need ally and partners. And one of our natural allies is the United States. We are friends. We share the same values, the same principles. And when we are facing problems, wars, we call each other immediately. We need each other, and we are stronger. And that's what it's a part of our history as well during the Second World War. So we just celebrate this with the ambassador just sitting there, the American ambassador. So we have to continue on this path, and as a Belgian, we strongly advocate to strengthening the multilateralism system, even if the WTO is not working so well nowadays, even if a lot of countries will say that, unfortunately for them and for the multilateralism, we are seeing veto most of the time, and the impeachment of taking very swift decision, and with also a member of the Security Council, which is an aggressor today, which is violating the very principles of the UN Charter. So all this together needs to be more and more ally and partners in the international scene.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And, just to pick up on a couple of different things that you said, I mean, you talked about rising protectionism or a desire for protectionism in certain quarters, economic nationalism, if you want to say, on both sides of the Atlantic, right, and elsewhere. And at the same time, this need for closer alliance cohesion that you mentioned. How do you reconcile these things? I mean, can we have a close security relationship if we're arguing about trade?
There are evidences nowadays, and it was also a lesson learned from the COVID pandemic, the 19 COVID pandemics, the war in Ukraine. We have to diversify our supply chains. It means that we need partnership. We need strong allies. We need a level playing field as well. And when we are seeing so many countries today wanted to be part of the European Union and not part of Russia and are under Russian influences, look at Georgia, look at Moldavia, look at Ukraine, of course. All of these countries are looking at us, expecting to be part of the nowadays strong democracy. They are leading very courageously reforms to be part of the free words, I have to say. So that's all this signal that nowadays we have to keep our position and to finalize, and United States is part of it.
No, I mean, what you're saying very much, I mean, you're spelling out some of your optimism, because, what you're saying is very much this argument about values linking us together, and because we very often hear that, we're just moving into a more transactional world where everything will just be interest-driven. But it's not just that, is it?
Not at all.
Can I ask you, something a little more local, in the sense that, is there a kind of special Belgian vocation in foreign policy in the world that, from history, from current interests, from values, that sort of, in a sense, sets you apart, would you say?
I think I mentioned it. This is the Belgian compromise. It took me 3 days and 10 hours to negotiate a common statement on this very sensitive issue, the Middle East situation. And I was negotiated with two very polarized positions within our union. And it appeared at the beginning of the day to be impossible to reconcile those who are closer to the Mediterranean position and those who are closer, and because of their history as well, to the other side. But at the end, we all want peace. We all want a ceasefire. We want the release of hostages. So putting all these points together, we were able to make this statement. And that's an achievement, even if, unfortunately, the war is still going on. But nevertheless, the Belgians succeed on achieving this statement and to find the finalizing of 70 legislative works, which is the promises of a European Union. We know that this parliament has been elected on a couple of promises that the deputy made in front of the citizens. And so it was our responsibility to go, and it was amazing, I have to say, when I was to Strasbourg, it was, we have a deal every day. Yes, it was written, we have a deal. And so it was a magical period, even if it was a challenging one at the same time. So the Belgian can do this. I would not say that we are a small countries. We are a small country in the heart of Europe, but we are this country with this capacity to reconcile the opposites. That's what we are doing.
This is a very useful vocation. I mean, if I could just ask you, I mean, the crises that we're seeing, multiple crises in the Middle East, is it, in your view, possible to imagine coming out, in some sense, at the other end of this era, in terms of, say, Palestinian-Israeli relations, that somehow we work our way back to a peace process, that somehow these tragedies inspire new approaches, something that can break this historic impasse?
You know, in Sunday I will go to Luxembourg. Once a year or twice a year we have a foreign affairs council over there, and we will have also a council with the GCC countries, Arabs, Gulf countries. And we are preparing the field over there to envisage any kind of initiatives that we can that can contribute to peace. And Arab countries know that nowadays this is the Belgian presidency, and after us it will be the Hungarian, and it will be a different time. And they are well aware that there is an opportunity now to seize. And I hope that, yes, we have a lot of informal contacts and gathering, but we hope, we were supposed, by the way, to hope this Peace Day initiative. You know, the purpose, this Peace Day initiative was launched under the Arab Leagues and European Union, and Egypt, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia as well. And what was at stake at this moment was the normalization of Saudi Arabia with Israel, and also an improvement of the situation of the Palestinian state. So, but unfortunately, October the 7th appears, and so everything was cancelled. And we still hope that something will happen before the end of our presidency. It's very optimistic, I know, but there is an emergency. There is a humanitarian tragedy nowadays. We just sent this morning 5 tons of medical and medicines to Egypt, because the hospitals over there are completely under tensions, threatening thousands of victims coming from Gaza. So it's a catastrophe, it's a humanitarian catastrophe. So we need to stop the violence over there, and also to obtain the release of all the hostages, and to relaunch a peace process.
Minister, thank you. And I'm conscious of our time, but you've very kindly agreed to take a question or two if we have a moment. It may be 1 or 2, but please, if I may, just in the back. And do tell us who you are and where you're from.
Hello, my name is Sandra Kaduri from Keeping Channels Open. It's a bit of a tricky question about the shutdown of the National Conservatives conference this week. I just wanted to ask, you know, it's a bit of a dilemma where there are voices out there who want to bring down the EU. I mean, where do you see the line should be drawn between freedom of speech and hate speech? And I know it's a really difficult one, but how did you feel about that situation? Because you're a former journalist as well. So.
Yeah, indeed. I didn't follow very closely this event, but I have to say that I'm always in favor of the defense of liberty of expression. And yes, the danger of populism is there. They have very simple answer to complicated questions. It's dangerous, it's a threat, but we have to face it. So I'm for liberty of expression, and I think that they had an appeal into the court, and so they had they received the agreement. So they hold their conference anyway. So this is a positive point.
Okay, thank you very much. Minister, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for being, I know this is an extraordinary busy period, and you were very, very kind to come along and share your thoughts with us. We're most grateful, and most grateful for your support for this event.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.